Hello everyone and welcome to the Aircraft Certification Channel. I'm Rafaela Caillaux and today I'm going to do an interview with Keenan, the head of airworthiness and certification at Heart Aerospace. We're going to talk about challenges in aircraft development and certification. So if you like the subject, please subscribe to the channel and click in the bell to receive a notification every time we upload a new video. So welcome on board and enjoy your journey. Hello, Phil. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Oh, I'm good too. So it's great to have you here in the channel. So before we start, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. So I'm Phil Keenan. I'm the head of airworthiness and certification here at Heart Aerospace in Sweden. I've been here for the last month or so. I've been in commercial aerospace my entire career, going back to a manufacturing technical apprenticeship beginning in 1997, working then for Airbus in the UK and France before spending some time with Mitsubishi Aircraft in Japan and now arriving in Sweden recently.
Okay, so it seems like you're pretty busy right now getting settled in Sweden. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So today we are going to talk about the challenges of developing and certifying an aircraft. So could you start talking about the aircraft development process itself?
Yes, it's actually a really relevant topic for me because I'm actually writing a current aircraft development process with Heart.
Okay, great. So actually each company has its own development process. But generally, we can see development processes being divided like in 4 big phases. Like the first phase would be the conceptual design, and then you can enter the preliminary design when you have a go-ahead on that. And then you have the detailed design, which is the biggest phase of the development, and you're going to build your prototype, you're going to do your first flight and certify the aircraft. So that's the a huge amount of work. And finally, you're going to get the TC and enter deliver your aircraft and enter in a in-service support phase. So in your opinion, what are the main challenges of the aircraft development process?
Well, I suppose I've always been fortunate or cursed to have worked in larger companies with those established processes. In those instances, I've found that the challenges are usually breaking the cycle. So to try and bring something innovative or risky into that process when it has a tendency to reject risk early on is quite a challenge. And the difficulty of that process, my experience as well, is something that's suitably generic that all of the different disciplines of engineering can follow and yet stay related and connected to the overall aircraft. So to the definition of the aircraft itself, to the milestones. And if you have divergent methods employed across structures, flight sciences and systems, and you allow the teams to run, should we say, too long at their own pace, you create silos of over progress or under progress, and that can really plague a program later on.
Okay, so you'd say like integration is one of the challenges of the development itself.
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly, now in the startup environment, I'm finding the challenge is to reinvent that process in some way to allow innovation, but to provide structure and product assurance, and obviously not compromising on any of the airworthiness or certification requirements or any of the inherent product safety that's required to be delivered at the end. And in this case, the challenges really are to focus on why you're doing work, what that work is, how you're going to do it, when in the development process you're going to do it, and to constantly reevaluate those attributes. So with such novelties as more model-based engineering, simulation work, and then obviously now with electric hybrid propulsions, let alone where there's the emergence of whole new aircraft operating concepts, such as in the VTOL arena, it's becoming more and more relevant to continually reevaluate your earlier assumptions and check their relevance as you go through that development process.
And how do you see you can try to reduce the risk of the development?
Well, I don't believe there's a proverbial silver bullet for that. I think effective risk and opportunity identification early in the project and a constant surveillance and management is the first and best practice. Again, why is something a risk or an opportunity? What can you do about it? What can the processes facilitate in that respect? What does the communication channels enable you to de-risk? When do I need to do it, and how will I need to do it? And risk management always needs to trend towards green and to be managed and followed as such. And it needs to be promoted as well, not just put in a register and leave it amber until it becomes red. So communicating clearly can't be emphasized strongly enough throughout all levels in the company. It's okay to not have all the answers at a given point in time for the development. Communicate what you do know, what your assumptions and open points are, and share that information with your stakeholders and peers. And that's going to foster that integration mindset by creating and promoting the project and the organizational interdependencies.
Okay. Yeah, it's really about not letting like a small problem become a big problem. Absolutely. And communication is the key to this process. And I guess the bigger the company, the more complex the communication flow is. So maybe an advantage of being a small organization is that you can make the communication happen more effectively.
Yes, and that still takes effort.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we talked about the aircraft development itself, can you explain how it's related to the aircraft certification process?
Well, I guess the fact that the aircraft development and the certification process are one and the same is a pertinent and controversial point to make, I suppose. One of the best starting points is to stop thinking of certification and product development as some kind of finish line. They're a milestone and a gate. And your development really should be running through that gate and that milestone towards the next one, which is, as you said at the beginning, entry into service. So too often people think that type certification is the end. It's important to recognize that the last thing you see as you close that chapter of certification, so as you've tied a bow around that package, is often the first thing that the customers and the operators and the maintainers are going to see in the real world use of the product. So it's important that you don't just see that as an end, but really a beginning of a next phase. And finally, it's emerging more and more as a trend that people are designing for certification. So a compliance mindset can be fostered early on and baked into the development process. And the challenge is never to lose sight of what you're trying to do with the certification, and that's a safe and airworthy product. And that's the why that you have to keep coming back to. But why do I want a safe and airworthy product? Well, ask yourself, do you want you and your friends, your family to get on board products that are inherently or mildly unsafe?
Yeah, we need to make sure that we are going to get wherever we are going to. So, and I think one of the issues that we can see when in the engineering schools is that they're very efficient when they're teaching engineers how to build an aircraft with good flying characteristics, with a good structure and so on. But they spend little time explaining how to design a certifiable aircraft. So I see that's a very, it's kind of a gap between the engineering school and the industry itself. So creating this compliance mindset inside the organization can be really a game changer to do the things that you need to do in an effective way. So you can take the good decisions in the beginning of the development process without having to fix a lot in the end, which is kind of costly and time consuming.
Absolutely.
And in your opinion, what are the main challenges of the certification process?
Well, I would say EASA's done So that's the European authority has done a great job working with industry in recent years to develop guidance materials and a framework that we can use to comprehend some of the trickier aspects and to anticipate things. And the key words they use there are severity, complexity, and novelty. And I think if you're innovating on technologies, so manufacturing processes, tools that you're going to use for coding, for modeling things, methods that you're going to follow, or even things like aircraft operational practices. When you start to get ticks against some of those words, you need to focus your efforts and identify and understand the risks. So again, take the time at the beginning to identify those risks, to prioritize those, and effectively manage them throughout the development. And again, as I said before, constantly reassess your earlier assumptions and the attributes that you've defined at the beginning. Make sure that it remains valid throughout.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that besides the technical challenges, the early involvement of the authorities is also a big challenge, and yet a great opportunity to kind of validate the assumptions that you're doing early in the process and avoiding going through pathways that can lead to dead ends and rework and really difficult situations. So, and you're currently working at Heart Aerospace and developing the EES-19, where Heart is using brand new electric engines. So what are the main challenges to develop and certify this aircraft?
So first and foremost, it's an emerging technology, and there's a lot of publicity around electric vehicles across many markets, not all of it good. Unfortunately, when you initiate some of the conversations with some people and you use words like lithium-ion batteries and aircraft, people get images in their heads of uncontained fires and battery explosions, etc. So some of those themes have to be explored, obviously, and avoid and minimize those hazards and risks. So to define reasonable operating spectrums, environmental conditions, to assess those as you go through the development, and to verify that the performance is as expected. So that's a big part of the mission that we're undertaking. And we have to make robust demonstrations of that to the authority as well as to the public. And that's to help gather trust in the technology. For us being a startup company, we need to master many disciplines all at the same time. So developing all of the processes and developing our company culture. We have to keep the relevant risks at the top of the priority list based on the area of novelty and complexity, and that's the battery and the propulsion system. Keep the rest of the aircraft relatively conventional and predictable so that we can ease our certification efforts.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach to try to innovate in one aspect and letting the other aspects in a more controlled environment. Yeah. But anyway, it's lots of challenges with the new propulsion system. And Heart is developing this aircraft to achieve zero operational emissions, right? So what are other initiatives that the company is taking to have greener solutions?
So European regulations have evolved over many years in the areas not just of fuel emissions, but also those such as noise reduction and phasing out of hazardous materials. And these are underpinning aspects that the ES-19 will have to be designed and certified to comply with. And they're not without their challenges. Use of lead-free solder, materials like cadmium plating, the aggressive de-icing fluids that can be used in the aircraft operations are just some of the examples that still feature in design trade studies and compromises for commercial aircraft. So we need to design really for the sunset of those types of banned and restricted materials and make sure we've got an across the aircraft, a sustainable development. And we've partnered as well with battery company Cuberg, so recently acquired by Northvolt, and there's a huge endeavour on their side for the whole battery an energy value chain to be more accountable for how the energy methods of the future are derived and sustained. And there's definitely a lot more to come on that in the future. So keep your eyes on Hart, Northvolt and the Qberg pages for more there. We're also in the enviable and fantastic position of studying our future company premises here in Gothenburg. So we're looking through the lens there of sustainable building methods to try and make the manufacturing, design and flight test facility as much of a sustainable venture as the product itself, within the region that we're based.
Great. I'm very enthusiastic of those sustainable solutions everywhere. And it's very nice to see this being applied in the aircraft industry as well. So what would be your final message to the professionals that are starting to work with aviation?
So I guess the serious one is never to forget what's at stake. Commercial aircraft and aviation has an established and fantastic, but absolutely no way guaranteed level of safety. And that needs to be proudly maintained and continuously improved. We simply can't rest on those aspects. Take pride in your efforts in any area of aviation that you're going to work, wherever you begin and want to go. Be proud of what you do. Challenge yourself to keep learning different skills and the different cultures in this sort of wildly global industry that we work in. And that for me has been firsthand from the UK, France, Japan, and now Sweden. It's always been a cultural journey. And just really keep looking up to the skies and see beyond what's there today to what can be in the future. Dare to dream.
Thank you very much for your nice words. And also thank you very much for being here with us and sharing your knowledge and your perspectives of the future. And it's really a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for being here.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Okay. Hope to see you again.
Absolutely.
So if you want to contact Phil directly, his link will be in the description area. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.